Isn't it?
That's great. Well played, my man. Well played.
Dennis, another week, another recording.
Another week.
How was your week? How many fish did you catch?
It was. Have we talked since I got a nice big one?
Well,
No, I went. No.
we recorded
talked
late last week
I
because you
got-
had to go fishing.
Right. Did I send you the picture?
Nope. You always say you're going
Huh.
to, and then you never do.
Well, no. Let's not over dramatize. You don't always not do it. Occasionally,
You're good for nothing,
I don't,
Dennis.
And this is one of
Yeah.
them.
I don't even think you went fishing.
Fish.
I think you were doing something else.
Fish pick. I went on Monday and it was bereft, except that I hooked into about a 12-inch young trout called a shaker. We call them a shaker because you just shake them off the hook instead of netting them and all
Okay.
that. But I didn't take a picture of it because I was so stupid. I wasn't quite sure what it was and I threw it back anyway. And later I thought, well, what was it? And it might have been a young brown trout. Maybe when they're young, the colors aren't there, but I don't think that's true. My brother said maybe it's something called a bull trout, which I've never heard
A
of.
bull trout?
But I don't know. I remember the picture of it, but anyway, I wasn't skunked because that's fair to say. It's almost like an asterisk. But otherwise, I fished 4 hours and had a brewski at the local pub.
Nice. Shaker and a brewski.
And headed home. I was home I took a hot tub and a shower. I was home from all that by 6. I left at 7 in the morning. My rule is whatever my driving time is, I have to fish. I need to fish at least that long. So I leave the truck at 11 o'clock. Then I know that come 3 o'clock, number one, I fished at least as long as I'm driving, and number two, if I'm tired, that's plenty. Because you're not just walking a mile. You're walking a mile with your knee deep and sometimes waist deep in water.
Right.
So
That's challenging
it's not
walking.
like a stroll in the park, so to
Yes.
speak. I didn't fall in this time, so that was a big plus. I recalled the double dip from the week before,
Yes.
which was twice I went down enough and was gurgling and spitting out water. It's always
And the fish were like, hey,
it's always funny when it's so sudden when this happens. You don't know, it just happens. It's done. It's not like you slowly fall in the water, although sometimes you do because you slowly lose your balance and can't gain it. But when it's a fast trip, I mean, I was up in Alaska fishing at the bottom of this long concrete channel of water that took the river from up higher in the mountainous area and was the last part of that steep area where the river came down until it straightened out and landed in Taku Bay. And so they wanted to control that water with no erosion. They put a concrete, huge, 60, 40 yard long. And at the bottom of it, of course, from all that water churning, there was a hole that the water had dug that was about 30 feet deep and about 40 feet wide. And in that mess of water, which is a big, deep pool of water, there was a glob, a school of fish, all 6-7 pound hunchback salmon.
hunchback. They don't have any posture.
Yeah. Well, they do the best they can. It's not nice to make fun of them. And of course, as I threw into the monster, round, perfectly round,
Yes.
a ball of fish. If I threw into them, I snagged into a fish and had to bring them in the belly, and you don't want to do that. And so I was trying to fish over the top of them, and almost by accident, I fished off to the side of this big 20-foot long ball of fish. And a fast fish darted out from the web and took my bait and ran with it, and bam, fish. I did that about 15 more times in an hour and a half. Again and again. And the routine was get the fish, got a little landing area where it's sandy and big rocks and little rocks, but you can walk around, and would bring him in there, get him as close as I could with my arm way out long so I could, reach down and unhook the fish with a pair of like pliers I have that are this long, hemostats, that are about this long. And before I took the hook off, while I had the fish firmly in place, I took a picture.
Yep.
And I did that about every time, and that was a routine. So one time I was in that stretch position, and the fish started flopping. And I had that funny thing that happens sometimes, like when you're chasing your hat, and it seems like the more you run toward it, the more you're causing it to roll. It's like you can't quite get it. I was doing that, trying to get this big fish. I didn't want him to go back. In fact, he was foul hooked, so I didn't want him to go back in the water. And suddenly, I was completely underwater.
Oh dear.
My entire head, my eyes, I opened my eyes underwater, didn't breathe in, and burst out of the water, just as quick, ice cold water, just as quickly as I could. And I didn't know what had happened. Well, what had happened was,
boy, to see the slow-mo replay.
My shin hurt, and sure enough, just before I landed in the water, there was a rock exactly the height of my shin, and as I was chasing the fish off to my right, I didn't notice the rock. I hit my shin on it hard, and of course it completely tripped me. I landed on a bigger rock that was chest high, or that was as big as my chest, a little lower than the rock I tripped on. That big rock was the cliff edge of that huge pool of water. And if I had walked in it and stepped 2 steps, I'd be over my head. It was a stark hole, right? And what happened was the only thing that went in the water was my head. Up to my neck. Not my shoulders. I barely got wet. But I was completely underwater. I had no idea what happened. My first flashing thought was that somehow I was in this deep pool of water, of which I was. Right. But my whole body, I'd be floating and kicking, sinking, trying to grab hold of the web of fish. I've never seen anything like this web of fish ever since.
What a slapstick comedy story.
No, I know it, and I laughed. I was laughing out loud when I was shaking my head, and I may have even been speaking out loud to myself when I said this. Was that really objectively speaking, if there had been one more rock there, that was exactly the height of my head, I very well could have cracked my head open and died. Because I was going fast enough that I had a welt and a bleeding bruise on my knee. I wasn't moving slow when I hit, and I said that would just be my luck that I would die here. The tide was coming in, which meant that everywhere I was going to be under 12 foot of water in less than an hour and a half.
Never found.
That's how fast the tide comes in. It's huge. No, I'd be found, but I'd be fine floating. And when the Coast Guard called my brothers and told them that they found me floating with, still had the pole wedged in my arm and there was a fish on it, that they would learn that it was foul hooked. And it would reduce their remorse considerably. Considerably.
Yeah, Dennis was a good brother, but he never
foul hooking fish. Fuck that.
I was thinking it'd be more funny if if there wasn't a tide and you were found with only your head in the water, drowned or whatever.
Yeah, hilarious. Well, that channel, that's called Gastineau Channel, is a channel that leads into Taku Bay, and Taku Bay in Juneau, Alaska, as you know,
yes,
is the location of my parents' untimely death by airplane. And so in that same river, understanding now what you know about the rapidity of the tide coming in and the depth of it, you'll know I went to the very end of Juneau, which is a peninsula, and the road ends, and there's a area that at low tide is wide open gravel and some puddles, and you can walk right out to what essentially becomes a river from the channel to Taku Bay, and it's not that wide. So I went on a very dry spot there, and I brought some stuff to commemorate my parents, and I had a little a spiritual connection with them because I hadn't been there since they passed, and I was very much into it. And I was reading this book called Alaska by James Michener, which is a must.
You recommended that, and I read it. I think I finished it. It's a long book.
It's hard to get through the first part of it because it's all the way back to geology and stuff. But it's complete.
I like the first.
But there's a chapter in there. There's a chapter in there that is the life of a salmon.
Yes.
And millions of fingerlings, and then which one makes it. And my dad's nickname, because he was a conservationist, and he helped put coho salmon successfully into the New York State Lake Erie. And he was part of that effort back in the 1980s. And his nickname was Coho Don as a result of that. So I read this chapter out loud in tribute to him.
Nice.
You know, because there I was, salmon would be, or will generally always be right in that spot. So that was part of it, and I did this little Indian circle thing that I do, blah, blah, blah. But what ended up happening was I became so self-possessed and connected with what I was doing.
Oh, no, the tide came in.
Realized because of the sound of the rushing water that my little island was about to it wasn't an area that you walked to anymore. It was now an island. And when I looked, and I noticed it from the noise of the water rushing into the low spots. And so the island meant that between me and the shore, which was almost probably 100 yards away.
Oh, crap.
This wasn't like, I mean, I walked out to this place to get as close to where they were, right? I mean, close to the spot. As I gathered my shit and said, oh shit, and gathered it up and took my first step off the fastly becoming smaller and smaller island, I started slipping in baseball-sized stones that were the basis of the island, and basically just a riff of stones that could easily and was being moved by rushing water, and I couldn't catch my grip.
Oh, God.
And I started churning downhill until I only had on gym shoes and jeans. I was waist deep, and it was getting deeper by the second. And so I lunged forward, caught hold, had to do that 3 more times. And each time I did it, thought, I don't know for sure that I can do this, but by the third time I was shallower and I could do it. And I got out, and it was so remarkable. It had me laughing out loud, and I think I said out loud, thanks, Mom and Dad, I get it now. What it was like in that cold water.
Wow.
You know, but my dad survived it, as you know. I mean, he saved a woman from South, a Guatemalan woman, and held her. She didn't have a life preserver, so he saved her life, and they both lived. She lived to tell the tale, and I corresponded with her in Spanish.
Nice.
I had a dude help me with that, and my dad got out of the water, and then the physician for the boat, the big vessel that they were traveling in, the big vacation boat. He was on the scene because there were dead people everywhere. The crash had killed 7 people. There's several that fished them out of the water, and the fucking physician did what you never do: is you take a man in a fetal position that is basically survived because he's managed to keep his heart warm, and you stretch out his arms so the ice water in his arms rush to his heart and kill him.
Damn.
And that's how he died. And when I was there, I went to the spot. I was walking to the place where he rented the plane, got off the big boat, which, by the way, the name of the ship was the Universe.
Whoa.
And was walking down to that spot where they came off, and I stopped in a spot and got shivers, stopped dead in the middle of this paved area, and even though it was warm, June-ish, I could see my breath. I was suddenly ice cold, and I was cold, and I said out loud, "This is where he died." And in fact, when I checked the next day with the guy who was there, he said, "I was right."
Wow.
I was right. Anyway,
crazy
that's
story.
Yeah, how did I start all that? A joke about fucking salmon.
Yeah, I learned an awful lot about canning salmon from that book. Like, there's over 200 pages about how to can salmon.
Yeah, and the description of the factory and its location was always fascinating to me. The thing about Alaska is that pretty much 100% of the time when you're outdoors, no matter where you're spinning at 360 degrees, you're seeing fantastic stuff that unless you've been to Alaska before, you've never seen anything like it. And so when they describe, as they do here, this massive canning factory that was right on the river, of course, for easy egress and egress, I could picture it in a way, because that view of a mighty river and wooded peninsula area where you could build a cannery, I've seen it. I've got pictures of it.
Nice.
I read the book twice. And the ending is a little interesting too, because it involves hunting giant goats, mountain goats, and they're very, very hard to see because they so perfectly blend into the gray and the white of the Rocky Mountains. And the whole time I was there, I did see one off in the distance, and it's the cragginess, the steepness, the impossible.
Mountain
vertical
goats are fucking aliens.
It's impossible. It's just impossible to imagine. And even though I had binoculars, of course they weren't. I needed like big binoculars to get close to this, but pretty remarkable place. It's having some difficulty now. There was a order given by the Federal Conservation Agency to put certain salmon on endangered species list, which when enacted or when implemented, whichever stage they're in, would basically outlaw one of the oldest and biggest industries in Alaska, that of commercial salmon fishing, which has suffered more and more and more because of global warming and overfishing. And in fact, it's hard to make a living anymore as a fisherman, let alone not be allowed to make a living anymore. Not making a living anymore for many is like, what's new?
Right.
I already can't.
Yeah.
They drop off like flies. And I've worked in that industry, and I know it well enough after months of doing the work. It's pretty fucking crazy. But the number of fish that we caught and the size of the schools were stupendous. They were beyond your imagination. I mean, imagine 3 40 to 50 foot boats 40 miles out in the ocean, each about 250, 300 yards apart. So you've got 1,000 yards, 10 football fields wide. You can always see your partner boats, right? So they're close enough, but you got a lot of lines out, and they're big, and the current changes. We all hit the same school of 10-pound salmon at the same time, and every one of the boats stopped its forward trajectory, and we all jerked, and people fell down on the deck. because every line we had in the water got a fish at exactly the same time, all 3 boats.
Damn.
And the depth of the lines were everywhere from 8 foot below the surface to 30 feet below the surface. Each boat had 24 lines and spoons on each side of the boat. We caught 48 fish all at the same time. We caught between us 150 fish all at the same time. Radio started cackling. Oh my God. 2 men bringing in fish. We had to let the top line or the bottom, we had to let top and bottom lines die because we couldn't bring them. You got these big gurneys, they're called, electronic gurneys, that are slowly but surely bringing in the metal line that goes out to a big weight. And at the bottom, at the very end of that, there are these 2 little metal clips that in between you put a 6-foot nylon line with a spoon at the end of it. And so you have the result of a steep angle with the weight on it and those 18 lines, 18 spoons. And we had to let the top and bottom ones die because when you run the gurney, you start to see the line first, and then you see a fish at the end of it. You ring that in with your hands, the last 6-7 feet, and with a hook, a captain hook, a gaffing hook. It's called long. It's on a baseball
bat. Captain hook.
You gaff them. You throw them in the boat. Usually, if you're really good at it, you clean that fish before the next one comes up. I never got that good. Otherwise, you throw it on the deck to clean it later. But when you run the line up, you often catch fish, but here there's no empty hooks. When we brought it up and were winding lure after lure on the deck, which you could never, all on top of each other, you better not tangle, right? All right, and then when you throw them and it's going the other way, you throw the lure out and you make sure it goes the full 6 feet and it goes down in the water. This day, every time we put one of those lures in the water, every time, both sides, all 3 boats, another fish was immediately on it because we were putting that in the school. For an hour and a half, we kept running that line up and down, and every time we did, we had like 36 fish on. By the time we had almost 200 fish spread out on our deck. We couldn't fit any more. They would fall off the fucking edge, even though there's a railing, and we had to walk through them.
Jesus.
And all boats were like that. I got $1 a fish because there were 10 pounds. The dude got 10. He got $10 a fish, $1 a pound. I got $1.
Expensive,
he got
so
10.
like that's a lot of money.
Well, this was 30, 40 years ago.
Still, damn. Probably why it's so expensive now.
So then we were in the mode. All right, so now I not only had to gut all those fish, I had to pack them all in ice in the hold beneath the deck. They all have to be packed a certain way, and I had to cook dinner, and then I got to go to bed. So I cleaned. The skipper, he doesn't dirty himself cleaning fish. He's like on the radio
clean
talking.
Like 500
he's figuring
fish.
out 200, a couple hundred. And so I did it. And what I would do is I would take the guts of the fish, and I would put them in these plastic buckets, 5-gallon buckets, completely full of guts. And when it was time to dump it, I'd get up, stand up, take a break, and dump it off the side. Well, dumping those guts in, of course, attracted sharks of such depth and such size that when I took my incredible, I'm lost on the ocean, here's a bright light to let you know where I am, flashlight, and shine it down into the ocean depths, the gray water of the ocean, I could see down 40 feet. And there were sharks in a spiral from the bottom of that to the top, and the biggest ones were half as big as my fucking boat, which was 42 feet long. And I would drop that shit in there, and they would fucking go crazy, yes. And while I was doing that, my fucking skipper came out and shot a fucking gun. Or I think it was, did he shoot a gun? Or did he? No, I don't know, but he clapped his hands and grabbed me by the belt. He clapped my hands so that I would fall in and grab me by the belt. And he said, "You stupid fuck. You're dead, you fall in the water."
Yeah, no kidding.
Never did that again. I'll never forget that image. It is as fresh in my mind as it happened. And in the image, I'm in the image.
Right.
Which is weird.
Yeah,
you know. And of course, my skipper's there holding on to my belt.
Are you supposed to keep the chum somewhere else, or just not look over the edge?
No. That's well, I'm not sure about what you're supposed to do, and there's probably more rules now. But no, I don't think so. What you want to save is the eggs, and that was one of the reasons that I used the buckets, because if they had eggs, the eggs sell for incredible amounts of money. You know, and so they were all packed. And in this case, the boat was full. We had to go home. There was nowhere else to pack ice, so we could fish a little, you know. Then when I would get to port, I would have to unpack all of those and put them on a kind of a gurney deal and fill that up, and then they'd get carted away. And then I'd have to get a big reverse vacuum cleaner, big blower, that was as big as around as your arms, like a fucking medicine ball, and it would shoot out ice.
Yes.
So you would have to accordion that down into your hole.
We have those in my fishing village.
Oh yeah. In fact, I've wondered about your fishing village, because I have this. I do sometimes put myself to sleep with the dream that I will be living in your town as a fisherman in a shanty down by the sea. And I have a sign outside that said, "We'll fish for food."
Well, I know just the shanty for you, so I'll make a down payment with our Patreon money.
Yeah, get it for me. My wife will put up with almost anything. Not.
Good stories.
So I got a big night tonight. I put together a 3-man band.
Yes.
Got a little trio.
Good.
Playing down at O'Duffy's. Piano man Tom Duffield and guitar man Mike Mushinsky.
Is the piano man related to the name of the pub in any way?
Dunfield.
You said Duff.
Duffield is his name, and it's O'Duffy's, so no.
Duff.
But I went on YouTube, and he's recorded a lot of stuff there, and I recognized that 3 of the original artists who did the tune, when they did it, blues tunes, they did it in the blues way, but it had lyrics where he's just jamming on the piano, and I learned that he interprets all blues tunes, many blues tunes, into a boogie woogie.
Okay.
Which renders the potential for lyrics pretty difficult, if not impossible. Because when you're doing boogie woogie, the whole part of it is that piano's going freewheeling. You don't need to worry about form. You don't need to worry about actual content. You don't need to worry that at this point you got to do a change up because somebody's going to sing something.
Okay.
You don't worry about. There's you just play it, and you can go in any million directions, slow, fast, jazz it up to it. Thus called a performance.
Okay.
But I tried without luck to try to sing what I know is the lyrics of this tune. I would go from the recording, the artist, and learn it as well as I possibly could. And of course, I'm prompted by the memory of the lyrics only because what's being played prompts me.
Yeah.
The different keys that are being played tell me how the lyrics, which I have in front of me, and I know how they're going to be resonate and depicted in the vocalization.
So you can't sing the boogie woogie?
But when you go boogie woogie, there's nothing natural about that pace, nor does there need to be. And so I've had to scratch a couple of songs.
I don't know anything about boogie woogie. Like,
Boogie woogie.
okay. Yeah, I see how there's
It's
no way
blues.
to hop in with the chorus.
Well, I was to a bar and the other day, and I knew that my baby was there to stay. I tried to get whiskey, I tried to get rum, couldn't get nothing, I felt so numb, but my baby was out me, she just danced away. That's fine. That is lyrics being written for the music. That's very different from taking a blues tune that goes, I'm back in the bar room, sitting with the boys and girls, and turning that into boogie.
Well, and is the
Well, I'm back in the bar room. I'm back in the bar room. The girls and boys. What a boogie piano does is it takes the music, the sheet music. And in between the notes that are depicted in the blues sheet music, it can do all sorts of things in the proper key to jazz all that up. And the repetitive nature of blues, Robert Johnson, for example, who you could play 5 of his songs, learning them once because they're all the same guitar.
Yeah.
What's different is the lyrics and the tune and et cetera, et cetera. So because of that built-in repetitiveness in blues to begin with, boogie-woogie blues has got the same characteristic. Plus, unlike the blues tunes that have a beginning, a middle, and an end, boogie-woogie, because it doesn't have any lyrics to worry about, or anything to worry about for that matter,
no worry music.
May go on. It can go on for minutes. I've heard 2 minute 23-second songs boogie woogied into 6 minutes and 50 seconds. I mean, right? Because and if you're doing lyrics, you either have a long, huge.
Is there a structure, or is it a lot of it improvised?
It's structured.
So
both.
When he plays the same song again the next night, it's. If you had lyrics that went with how he's played it last night, you could sing them on the second night.
If indeed he does them the same way. But one of the characteristics of people that jam, and this is a very pleasing characteristic to them and the listening audience, they may never do it the same way twice.
Exactly, that was my question.
Right. And but then again, they might. If you've done the song for 15 years and you've recorded it the same way 2 or 3 times, muscle memory, rhythm memory takes over, and you're likely to do that. Not to say that you can't think, because of the feeling in the room right now, I'm going to slow it down.
Right.
I'm going to slow down the boogie woogie, and I'm going to change up into a bluesy part of it, bring in a harmonica or lyrics.
You could change it to woogie boogie.
And then I tell you, it's really difficult to figure it out. The one that's the best, and you can see this easily by YouTubing. Let's see, Ray Charles at the tune "Mess Around," and then put in "Mess Around" by Tom Duffield, Duffield, and you can hear the 2 versions. When you are hearing Ray Charles, and the lyrics will be on the same page as the what you're hearing generally, it's easy enough to sing to it because it is a lyrically structured song. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The intro isn't that long. The center solo is not that long. The end isn't that long. 3 minutes, 36 seconds. Whereas The boogie woogie version, no lyrics, I think it's 5 minutes.
Okay.
And they both have the same structure for the basic structure of the song.
Right.
Oh no, and that means that even though he then extrapolates and goes in whatever direction he wants, because he's not constrained by any lyrics or any formality.
No rules, man.
No rules, man. You can hear at a certain part, but without any repetition, how the lyrics would fit. Don't tell I met Jenny in the ba. Sometimes, but then instead of a 4-line verse, what he does, or what any piano player can do, is that they don't give you room for 4 lines.
Right.
They don't go da 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 da. They don't do that. They do it twice, and then they start, all over. Yeah. And so you can't. And the highly repetitive, they do the mess around. Why, yeah, they do the mess around. Everybody does a mess around. You can fit that in there in the boogie woogie several times if that's what you're comfortable with. And I'm going to do that because, and I might be able to work in some other, but because he never does it with lyrics, ever.
Right.
I'm not going to go in there and say, Mr. Talent for the Night, the guy whom without we have no band.
Could you do this my way, please?
Different. Nah, no fucking way. And so it's about all I can do. But also I'll have the right harp key, and I'm bringing in my percussion instruments so that I've got plenty to do. But I did add a bunch of songs to sing, and I already sing a bunch of tunes with him. Summertime and
Wintertime.
I Put a Spell on You, which is a lot of fun. I've talked about this before.
I recall.
But the guitar player has brought a couple, a nice blues stuff, so that's going to be fun.
Nice. And
it's only a 2-hour gig. Thank God it's not 3.
Still, 2 hours is. Well, I guess if everyone has their thing that they're bringing, it can go by pretty quickly.
Well, in this case, it's everybody had to self-rehearse because we had no
self-rehearse.
We had no capability to get together to rehearse. I mean, and there's a snowstorm today. It was 70 yesterday. Temperature dropped 52 degrees last night. And we woke up to snow, and I drove home shortly in a blizzard. Shortly a while ago in a blizzard.
Wow.
Where it was dangerous. And now the snow stopped, the blizzard stops, it's just gray and cold. It will be another 40 degrees warmer in 2 days.
That's crazy. We finally have what is the proper winter weather here, which is cold and rainy for
so
weeks.
Cold.
Because that's the way it
so
used to be.
Proper.
That's the way people remember it being. But I've got a couple stories.
Okay, and remind me to get to the political desk. We had a primary yesterday.
Yes, I did know that.
But let me hear your anecdote. Your first anecdote.
So I got an appointment with the local nurse today. Because remember, not last weekend, but the weekend before, I had gone on this long hike with my kids up a mountain, and you read my son's account of it.
Yes.
In that we were doing this, walking on the slippery edges of this road with puddles in the middle, trying not to fall in. And one time I almost fell in, but I stopped. I caught myself on the ground, and my hand went into a super prickly plant, and it hurt like hell. And I was able to pull out quite a few of the things, But, for the rest of the day, it sort of hurt, and I could sort of see some dots where some of them had like gone under my skin and shit.
Under the skin, yeah.
And I reasoned, well, skin grows from the inside out. Eventually, they're going to be pushed out of the skin.
Right, after they're infected.
Right.
After they're infected,
exactly.
they will.
So with that idea, I waited.
So they'll come out in a flesh and pus.
I waited a week.
Oh, you did?
And
really? Oh, I can't believe it. What
and then
putz? I can't.
A pus putz. And
a sliver pus.
And
a sliver pus.
It was fine, but then they started hurting quite a bit.
I imagine they would.
Especially, I had one on my index finger, whereas.
Isn't it amazing how a little thing can destroy your functioning?
Well, this is where I put all the weight when I'm chopping stuff with a knife on that part of my index finger, and so it had gotten bad, and and there was like 6 or 7 little dots I could see, and so I was complaining about this, and my wife, the veterinarian, said, "I can get those out for you. I just need to go to work tomorrow and bring back a needle, like the kind of needle."
A hot needle.
Well, no.
Put it in a flame.
No. Like the kind of needle.
Purified.
No, the kind of needle. We're not in the woods, Dennis. The kind of.
Start a fire in your living room. Little bonfire.
The kind of needle like for a syringe, where it's sharp, but there's a hole in it for the injection. And I said, maybe I might just go to the nurse. And so today I made an appointment, and I went, and she pulled out one of these needles and dug into the upper layer of my skin in several places, and there were on my fingers where I have relative calluses, it didn't hurt at all. Like how you can put a pin through the upper part of your finger and it stays there, but it doesn't really hurt. Have you ever done that trick?
I imagine that's what people in your frame of mind do in their free time. However,
we used to do that in middle school. You could put a thing, and then you could like hold up your finger, and you could.
But I can imagine that the very hard kind of bunion-like thing in the edge of my large toe, I could put a pin through it without anything.
Exactly.
So yes, I don't have anything like that in my hands, though.
But so anyway, she dug around in there and drew blood in several places. You can see some
I can
dots
see.
there.
Did she put a salve? Give you ointment to put on it? Healing ointment?
No, she sprayed it with a disinfectant, and.
Well, you should put a little. It's typical. It's called triple.
Is it typical or topical?
It's topical, but it's called. Fuck. It's called triple antibiotic. I mean it, and it increases the time of healing demonstrably. I use it for.
Okay, I've never heard of that.
Triple something antibiotic cream.
Okay, I don't. Who knows if that's available here and what the name would be, but.
It's worldwide. It's international. So
my other story with my right hand is over the weekend.
Do we want to shut the audio off while you tell the story? Or?
No, it's safe for work, but it did interrupt my work. Over the weekend I was at my sister-in-law's house where she doesn't have any central heating, any radiators or anything. So what they have is these gas stoves that she sets up in various rooms. Anyway,
with exhaust.
No,
pipes?
No, it's just burning the butane right there in the room.
Is that true?
Does
it smell?
It smells when you first turn it on, but then it doesn't when it's on.
We wouldn't be allowed to do that in the U.S.
No, I mean it's probably not healthy. But anyway, for some reason, I had the thought, I wonder if this is hot. And so I put my index and middle finger. Whoa, cool. Have you seen that? Did you dream
What the hell was that?
No, there's this video feature on Mac computers now that there's various like hand gestures you can do that cause these animations to happen. Isn't that wild? Did it just blow your mind? No, it doesn't work for you.
Oh.
Anyway, I put these two fingers on it and immediately regretted it, obviously. And it hurt like hell. There was maybe a tiny bit of blistering, but not much. And it hurt for a couple hours after that. But then I came back home and I started working, and I went to unlock my computer with the fingerprint biometric thing, and it didn't work anymore.
Because it was
because I burned off my fingerprint. I think it'll grow back.
And you know that's what a lot of the old Constant was, that they used matches and burned off all their
It makes sense.
fingerprints back in the day.
I'm planning my bank robbery for tomorrow, so.
But that would leave a fingerprint of some sorts.
Yeah, but it's not the one that's in the database, man.
Oh yeah.
Like it reminds me when I took my mother-in-law one time to renew her national identity card, and when you do that, they take your fingerprints. But the machine that was scanning for her fingerprint never worked because she had, over a career of being basically a janitor, had used so many cleaning chemicals with her bare hands that she no longer has fingerprints.
Well, speaking of moving from fingerprints to crime,
yes.
What's the story with the dead, murdered Russian in Spain, man?
Whoa, I didn't hear about this.
The Russian pilot was found bullet-ridden in España.
Really?
Yeah.
I had not heard of this.
Oh Lord, this was a week ago. He was suspected of defection. Anyway,
Russian helicopter pilot who defected to Ukraine found dead in Spain. Hey, that rhymes. Where in Spain, I wonder? I did not learn about this.
city.
What?
It was this urban area,
Yeah, well.
if I recall.
Huh. I did not know about this. So basically I'm saying I didn't do it. But that's crazy. Huh. Nope, no idea. Madrid looks like. Huh. Yeah, so don't go against Putin if you're Russian. You know? if you're in a hurry.
I would say, you know the story of the what's his name, Nat Vanya. I bet you I'm losing a letter in there. The advocate for free rights that was imprisoned up in the Gulag and turned up dead. Navalny, or maybe Navalny.
Alexei. Probably.
And the official report came out today. It
Natural
said that
causes.
earlier that day that he died, he was walking around the penal colony and felt ill. A little later, he suddenly died of natural causes.
Yeah.
Naturally, you die if a bullet goes through your fucking head. Anyway, I can't imagine they'll be releasing the body anytime soon, unless they would do so in pieces, missing his head.
Right.
Good Lord. And all the politics here in the U.S. is such that Ukraine is starting to lose territory. Russia picked up a lot of territory they otherwise would not have been able to get, except for the thinning munitions of the Ukrainian army. And at this point, even though Europe has put in the 60 billion that they promised, matched by our 60 billion not delivered, it's deteriorating. And he's already mentioning issues relative to the Polish border and other borders.
They're not going to stop. If they get Ukraine, they're not going to stop.
Why would he? Why would he? He's old school. He wants to go back to the freaking, Soviet Union. And that's on us. And the House, with their replacement for McCarthy, who got voted out by the rule he allowed, which was I can be ousted at the motion of only one member. So he was ousted with big surprise. Johnson's in, and he's told out loud by people in an interview that if he brings up Ukraine aid, that he will be moved to ouster. So he'd be out of a job. He met with the top leaders of the United States government. Joseph Biden,
I know him.
Kamala Harris, the head of defense, minority leader of the House, Hakeem Jeffries. He is a majority leader in the House. Senate Majority Leader Schumer, Senate Minority Leader fucking otherwise known as Tuttle the Turtle. What's his ass? I'm drawing a blank on his name. McConnell. And they all ganged up on Johnson. And it was such a stark divide. And even though they all agreed that they were going to all, report that there were positive discussions.
They agreed on something.
McConnell went out and didn't stand with Johnson. He made Johnson talk by himself. McConnell's pissed about the whole fucking thing. Now, he said during this talk that, they hope they overcome, the challenges, blah, blah, blah. What he meant by challenges is the position of the MAGA coalition of 6 to 8 in the House out of 400 who can stop any legislation because they tell Johnson, if you put this to the floor where Ukraine would receive 75% approval. But the small group say if you put it up for vote, which is the only way it can be approved, obviously, we will oust you. And so he won't do it. And he says months ago, I will only do it if you produce, there's agreement on what we're going to do about the U.S. border in Mexico. We need to stop the flow of immigrants. So months ago, McConnell and Schumer and others devised the most conservative plan that's been produced by immigration in the past 20 years, and the best bipartisan plan that's ever been produced, obviously, in those times, and pulled Biden toward more closure and elimination of the issue than he's ever been before, and some outrage by the progressive left, but not enough to stop it. And they presented that. They were going to present that in the Senate, and Donald Trump called Mike Johnson and told Mike Johnson, don't you dare let that pass. I don't want this fixed when Biden is president. It'll help him in his election. When I get to be president, I'll fix it. Deal done, deal closed. That asshole gets up and says, we can't do this aid thing unless we've got a real agreement on what we're going to do about the border. What he's just done is delivered countless minutes of ads.
Fucking politics.
That now put the entire burden, currently the most important issue to the United States voting public, that's gone up from 24 to 38% of the people are most concerned about it. They've now taken the issue and stripped it as something to use against the Democrats, and instead will be fucking bludgeoned with it. because now they own the problem. They refuse to do this. Close the border, boom, boom. Add more agents, boom, boom. The unions who represent the workers on the border unanimously endorsed this Senate plan. The Wall Street Journal, the icon of conservatives, says this is the best plan that we've ever seen. It's the best plan that you'll ever get. And by the way, there's virtually nothing in this plan that we would expect would be achievable in a Trump administration. And it died in the Senate.
Fucking Congress.
Died in the Senate. And so, good news and bad news. Immigration continues to be a problem. This campaign, we get our primary yesterday.
Yeah, let's
right?
go to the political desk.
Because we have 200 odd thousand or million, I don't know, huge number of Arab-speaking people here in the United States in Dearborn, Michigan. It's the largest non-Arab community of
Largest
Arab
Oh,
residents, right? Many of whom are Palestinian, all of whom are sympathetic to the Palestinian as fellow Arabs. They created a campaign called the non-committed campaign that instead of Biden or instead of the doofus from Congress who's
wait, I thought it was
running,
uncommitted.
uncommitted, I should say, and then the other Marianne Williamson, the spiritual guru who dropped out, she's still on the ballot. Uncommitted came in second with 13% of the voting public. The Democrats who voted, their number was only 60% of the number of Republicans. In other words, Republicans had 40% more people vote, displaying enthusiasm for Trump.
Right.
But, and Nikki Haley, who got 27% of the vote and did very well in urban centers.
Yeah, my what I heard was the uncommit was a way for that a lot of Democrats could say, "Hey,
Protest
Joe,
the Palestinian,
what the fuck you doing
yeah.
in Israel?" And
exactly, without a doubt,
without really causing anything, and also a lot of the and also a thing Democrats did was vote for Nikki because just to sort of scare Trump or whatever.
Some may have. I can't imagine that would be a striking number. But
because like we said in our email or like that article I sent you that Nikki wants to stay in this to be the one that said I told you so when Trump loses or gets convicted or whatever. She wants to be the other Republican.
He didn't. That was my theory. That article said that she's doing it for next
for the next time
or for the next election. I opined that I thought it had a much earlier potential payoff. Well, listen, man, I gotta go. I will tell you this. Something told me it was over when I saw you and her talking. Something deep down in my soul said, cry, boy, when I saw you and that girl walking around. Oh, I would rather go blind, boy, than to see you walk away from me, child. Oh, you see, I love you so much that I don't want to watch you leave me. Most of all, I just don't want to be free, no. Sitting here thinking of your kiss and your warm embrace. Oh, I'd rather be blind, boy, than to see you walk away from me.
It's pretty sad.
I'd rather go blind by Etta James. I'm out, soldier. Soldier blues.
Peace. Wow, that's the kind of talkative Dennis that I remember when I asked him to do this podcast with me. That's all for episode number 209. You can find the show notes at happyhour.fm/209. You can help support the show at patreon.com/happyhour. We would really, really appreciate that. See you next week.